Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If you could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mr. Greenberg.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much. Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you. Mr. Greenberg?
Here.
Mr. Hicks?
Here.
Chairman Mako?
Here.
Ms. Palia?
Pollyea here.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Palia. Mr. Shopka?
Shupaka, present.
I'll get this by the next
She'll
round.
get it. Yeah.
Mr. Suriano? All right, and Mr. Tamarkin?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, any additions or corrections to the agenda? Don't believe so. Okay, approval of minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the June 26, 2024 meeting?
So moved by Hicks.
Have a motion by Mr. Hicks. Do I have a second?
Second, Greenberg.
Second by Mr. Greenberg. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Chairman Mako?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to overthink this now. Can you say it for me one more time?
That's okay. Pollyea?
Palia. Ms. Palia?
Yes.
Mr. Shapaka?
Yes.
And Mr. Tamarkin?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Our next agenda item is going to be the swearing in of applicants and speakers. Mr. Assistant City Attorney, Mr. Roth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are now at the public hearing portion of the meeting. The public hearing will operate as follows. Administrative staff will make a presentation or comment on the application. The applicant or their representative may then make a presentation or comment on the application. The applicant has 10 minutes to present, and additional time may be requested. Permission is at the discretion of the chair. Public comment will then be open for 3 minutes allowed per speaker. Additional time may be requested. Permission is at the discretion of the chair. Speakers must complete a speaker slip and come to the podium and state their name and address. The applicant will then be given 10 minutes to comment. Additional time may be requested. Permission is at the discretion of the chair. If there is more than one application pending for a particular address, the presentation on each application may be consolidated and presented as one. At this time, will persons wishing to present testimony this evening please rise and raise your right hand to be sworn in? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, state I do. I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. We'll now move into our applications. The first application we have is going to be a variance, and I'll read this into the record. We have item V-0016-2024 to consider a variance application to vary section 1103.7E, large lot residential of the codified ordinances of the city of Gahanna for property located at 969 Crystal K, parcel ID 025-011513, current zoning R1, large lot residential. Steve Beck, applicant. Presentation by Ms. Kapka.
The first variance application of the night is at 969 Crystal K Court, which is zoned R1 large lot residential. This zoning district is consistent with the surrounding neighborhood as well. The neighborhood that the property is located in was developed in the mid to late 90s, and the development to the north along Evelyn Lane was developed more recently in 2015 and 2016. The applicant is requesting approval of a variance to allow a deck within a front yard setback. The deck is located in what's typically considered a rear yard, as it's located adjacent to the back of the house on the lot. However, since the construction of Evelyn Lane, the site now has 2 frontages and therefore has 2 front yards, both of which have a 35-foot setback. The deck encroaches 15 foot into the 35-foot setback as measured from the north property line. However, there are also multiple easements on the site, and the deck is located outside of all easements, and the location has been signed off on by the Department of Engineering. Here is a site plan that was submitted by the applicant. The footprint of the deck is shown in blue, and the 35-foot yard setback as measured from the north property line is shown in red. So you can see not only does the deck encroach into the setback, but the house on the lot does as well. So any deck that would be constructed on the lot would require a variance application. Also on this site plan is the approximate location of Evelyn Lane, which is located 37 to 49 feet away from the north property line, depending on where you measure it from. Here is a photo that was submitted by the applicant. This is the view of the applicant's property from Evelyn Lane. So you can see that the majority of the rear yard is screened with some existing trees and foliage. So the deck, once constructed, would not be visible from Evelyn Lane. The top left photo shows the existing deck, which is around 20 years old, and the bottom right image shows the new deck. This variance application has 1 variance associated with it. It is to the requirement that there be a 35-foot setback from each front yard within the R1 zoning district, and the deck encroaches 15 feet into the setback. Since the application was filed under the new zoning code, the new zoning criteria is what's evaluated. So this criteria is the variance is not likely to result in any substantial damage to the neighborhood. It's not likely to result in damage to adjoining properties. It's not likely to affect the delivery of government services. Not likely to result in environmental impacts. It's necessary for the economical use of the property, and it's not likely to undermine the objectives of the land use plan. So staff recommends approval of the variance as submitted. The setbacks on this site are much greater than usual due to the double frontage along Evelyn Lane. So this creates special circumstances that necessitate approval of a variance application. There's also a 37 to 49-foot buffer between the north property line and Evelyn Lane, and the majority of the rear yard is screened from Evelyn Lane. If there was only 1 frontage, as it was up until 2015 or 2016, the rear yard setback would only be 10 feet and a variance application would not be required. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kapka. We'll now open public comment. Would the applicant like to comment?
Yes, I'm the applicant.
Okay, if you could state your name, address, in relationship to the project.
Sure. So my name is Steve Beck. I am the owner, 969 Crystal K Court here in Gahanna. Thank you for the summation. I really don't have a whole lot else to say, to be honest with you. She pretty much hit all the notes that I was going to highlight on. I think the biggest thing that I'd just like to point out from looking at this, the footprint of our current deck is currently where we want to put the new deck. We have a wood deck. It's, again, 20 years old, starting to deteriorate. We're just looking for a material that would be low maintenance for us. So we're looking at a composite material, which is the main reason that we want to replace the deck. Basically, as mentioned in the layout, we are, and I'm losing sight here, 52 feet would be the distance from the deck to Evelyn Lane. So there's not going to be any restrictive access in terms of getting access to Evelyn. And you saw the foliage that was laid out that is already there. So again, I do not see any issues. The reason I'm standing here before you is because of Evelyn being put in 2015, and that frontage now being part of our easement that didn't exist when we purchased the home. So with that said, I don't want to take up any more of your folks' time. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Beck.
All right.
I did not receive any speaker slips, so we'll close public comment and open up questions from the commission. Starting on my left, Mr. Chapaka,
No comment, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Pollier.
Just one question, if I may? No, you're fine.
I tried to get away from you.
You're okay. I see a survey here from 1995. Did you update that? How did you figure out those measurements?
I took the measurements, to be honest with you.
You didn't have a surveyor out to do it?
To do the new measurements?
Correct.
No.
Okay.
No, we were using the survey that was provided at the time the house was built, and then what we did was we laid and I spoke with the engineering department, we laid what we want to do onto the plot that exists and everything. And again, I took a couple measurements. I don't know if those were, I believe I submitted one very haphazard photo that showed where the deck would end
Yeah,
versus
I saw that.
where the easement would begin.
Okay.
We have all of about 4 inches there to play with, 4 to 5 inches between where the house sits versus the 15 feet.
So the easements and everything, they're already plotted out on that 95 survey? Like all of that stuff is already on there?
Prior to the house being built, yes.
Okay. Nothing new?
Nothing new. The house, I'm not sure what you're asking. I apologize.
No,
So
it's okay.
Yeah, the survey was in 95. The house was built in 97. We
Okay.
moved in 98. So the plot you're looking at in 95 would be prior to the construction of the house.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Pollier. Mr. Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Beck, my first question was, how long have you lived there? I think you just said 1998.
98.
What existed? I'm very curious about how Evelyn Lane came to be. So since you've been there, what existed behind there before Evelyn
It
Lane?
was a field.
Okay.
It was an empty field.
Did you lose any property or frontage when that road was built? Like, did you have to sell part of
No.
your land? Okay.
No.
Yeah, those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Mr. Greenberg.
I just asked the clerk if were there any comments from any neighbors?
I received none.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tamarkin.
I have no questions.
Just a quick question for Ms. Kapka. So the introduction of Evelyn Lane, that's how we get to double frontages?
Correct.
And because of that being the case, what would now be considered the rear yard of this property?
There is no rear yard.
Interesting. Interesting.
We'd have about 4 foot. I was looking at that. If we did not have a current deck now and we were to ask and that frontage would not be waived, we would have 4 foot of area to use.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, any other questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion to approve V-0016-2024?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve item V-16-2024.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Hicks. Do we have a second?
Second, Chapaka?
Second by Mr. Chapaka. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I will be in favor of the variance. I think the unique situation that exists warrants it, and it's not detrimental to any of the neighbors. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Polly?
Yeah, I will also be in favor of variance as well, for the same reasons. I would have preferred to see an updated survey, just maybe after, like, the 2015, 2016, with the double frontage. But given the circumstances, I would be, as the engineer's department, trust your measurements, so that's good enough for me, so I'll also be in favor of it.
Thank you.
Mr. Hicks?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We see corner lots from time to time before Planning Commission that have 2 front yards because it's a corner lot. This is the first example that I can think of where you have a front yard and your front and formerly rear yard, so very unusual. All the criteria for approving the variance in my mind have been met, so I'll be in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hicks. Mr. Greenberg?
I will also be in favor for all the reasons that my associates mentioned.
Thank you, Mr. Greenberg. Mr. DeMarkin?
Same here, no comments.
Okay. And I'm also going to be in favor. I actually live in the area, and I remember when Evelyn Lane was put in, so I saw that whole, from start to finish. So, yeah, it's a very unique situation, and as we said, I don't think I've ever seen a double frontage lot like this before, so you learn something new every day, I guess. Okay, so with that, clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you. Chairman Mako?
Yes.
I apologize. Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Chapaka?
Yes.
Ms. Follier?
Yes.
Mr. DeMarkin?
Yes.
Mr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving along. The next item we have is another variance case, and I'll read this into the record. We have case V-0017-2024 to consider a variance application to vary section 1103.09E, small lot residential property located at 541 Palace Lane, parcel ID 025-001481, current zoning R3, small lot residential. And our applicant is Siva Lucianinoff. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I apologize. So turn it over to Ms. Kapka for a presentation.
This next variance application is at 541 Palace Lane. The lot is zoned R3 small lot residential, which is in line with all of the surrounding properties as well. The applicant is requesting approval of 2 variances to allow a carport both to the front of a house and within a front yard setback. The zoning code requires that all accessory structures be located to the rear of the primary structure, including carports. The carport is also fully within the 25-foot front yard setback and is only 7 feet 9 inches from the front property line. The carport was installed prior to city approval and prior to applying for any permits or applications, and this variance application was filed due to code enforcement action. There is a 1-car garage on the property, and the applicant states that they wanted their second car to be covered as well, which is why the carport was installed. However, upon looking at the neighborhood, the vast majority of houses in the neighborhood either have no garage or just a 1-car garage, which includes every single house along Palace Lane. Here is a site plan that was submitted by the applicant. The 25-foot front yard setback is shown in light blue. As you can see, the entire carport is located within that 25-foot yard setback, but the 5-foot side yard setback is met. Here is a photo of the carport that was submitted by the applicant. Here you can see the materials it's constructed of and the distance from the carport to the edge of the sidewalk. It's also anchored in place with concrete footers. Here are the 2 variances that are being requested. The first is that code requires a 25-foot front yard setback for every property that's zoned R3. The carport is only 7 feet 9 inches from the front property line. The second is that the zoning code requires that all accessory structures be located to the rear of the primary dwelling, and the carport is located to the front of the primary dwelling. This application was also filed under the current zoning code and is subject to the same criteria as the same variance. I won't reread all of these, but the one that's the most applicable in this situation is the first one that reads, "The variance is not likely to result in substantial damage to the essential character of the neighborhood." Staff recommends disapproval of both variances as submitted. The carport is not consistent with the neighborhood's character and is extremely visible from the right-of-way. The applicant does state that since there is only a 1-car garage on site, there are no alternative locations for a carport with the small lot size. And the applicant states that the carport was installed to protect their electric vehicle from the elements. It's also worth mentioning that the carport must be removed if the variances are denied. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Kapka. We'll now open public comment. Would the applicant like to speak? Again, if you could state your name, address, and relationship to the project.
Yep. My name is Seba Lucianov, full name Visievolod, but Seba, please. Property is 541 Palace Lane. I'm the homeowner, and I'm the one that put together the carport. It arrived as a kit, so yeah, no building permit was required there. Now, I want to address a couple points. First one is this is not the only carport in the neighborhood. So I have submitted some additional photos. There's a carport on 362 Lincolnshire Road, and I did some Google Earth satellite view sleuthing. This carport was put up in 2017 and has never been taken down since then. Now, this carport on Lincolnshire Road is, that road is a main artery of the neighborhood. It runs the entire length of the neighborhood, north to south. So anyone living in Royal Manor is going to drive by this thing once in a while. There's some further images. You can see that this carport is bolted down to the concrete, so making it a permanent structure. I believe that sets precedence for having at least one carport in the neighborhood that I've seen. This is the picture from 2017 when I first saw it put up, and there's this following photo in 2024 where it remains up to this day. Now, I've lived in this neighborhood for 2 years, and I haven't seen it taken down for a single day. Now, my carport, I won't argue, it is visible from the right-of-way, but I just want to bring up the point of who actually sees this carport. To get to my home on Palace Lane, you need to pull into the neighborhood from Agler Road, turn right onto Imperial Drive, then make a left onto Daventry Lane, then make a right onto Empire Drive, and then finally make a left onto Palace Lane again. So if I lived directly on Stigler Road, then I'd concede lots of people would see this thing. But as it stands to navigate this maze of streets and get to my home, the only people that are actually going to see this carport and be affected by it are my neighbors. And so I have reached out to my neighbors for their opinions. And they've actually given me some text that I can quote. So from Lindsay, my right-hand side neighbor, she says, the carport appears to be well-constructed and isn't a cause of concern for any other reason on my end. If approval is needed from neighbors, then I will give my approval of Seva's carport. My left-hand side neighbor, Dawn, she says, as far as this carport, I know he wanted to install it because of hail damage we experienced in the spring. He also wanted to keep the direct sunlight off his electric car battery. It does not bother me that he had it built and uses it. I hope you consider letting him keep the structure for his car. Thank you so much for your time and consideration. I also asked my neighbor Mike across the street. He didn't provide comment, but he did give me his verbal approval that he was fine with the carport as it was being built. As for its necessity, this isn't just to provide shade because the car is hot and I want more comfort. If I pull up my manufacturer's website, they have a section on parking in hot weather with a all bold important notice says, avoid exposing the car to extreme temperatures, avoid leaving the car parked for longer than 24 hours if the temperature is at risk of reaching 131 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, that 131 degrees Fahrenheit is not the air temperatures we read outside. That is the temperature of the car battery. And during our heat wave that we had in mid-June, the car battery actually read a temperature of 110 degrees Fahrenheit in the shade underneath the carport. They continue to write, high temperatures cause battery damage, especially when the car is exposed to hot weather for prolonged periods. The car can actively cool the battery while it's parked, but that uses power. When you're returning to your parked car, the battery level could be noticeably lower than before. In hot temperatures, it is recommended that you park in a shaded spot. Strong sunlight combined with high temperatures can lead to very high battery temperatures and excessive cooling needs. So, as an EV owner, this is very important to me, this circumstance. Imagine if you came back to your gas-powered car and the tank was just half empty when you left it out in the sun. This is the thing I'm trying to protect from, and my apologies for building the carport before requesting this variance. I'm a first-time homeowner, and I didn't know about all the processes involved with this, so retroactive action is the best I can do at this point. But yeah, hoping you guys with this extra information can consider approving this variance, despite it not matching the overall character of the neighborhood. My neighbors have been fine with it, and I'd be happy to pull more people on the street and see if they mind. Lastly, this is a starter home. I won't be living in this place forever, and so if it helps with your guys' decision, I'd be happy to agree to something that I'll take it down when I move out and the EV is no longer present on this property. The carport won't be necessary then. So I'll just use it while I need it, and it won't leave its mark on the neighborhood once I'm out of here. So that is all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I did not receive any speakers forms, so we'll close public comment and move into questions from the commission. Starting on my left, Mr. Shabaka.
Yeah, let's go with the obvious. How many cars do you own?
I own 2 cars. So in the garage is a Subaru WRX, which is more often than not in some form of repair. I mean, even today, it's on jack stands and is not leaving the garage, whether I want it to or not.
Okay. Second question, so when you built the shelter, how deep did you make the footings?
Good question. I actually had this written down somewhere. If I remember correctly, they're 3 feet deep.
Was there an anchor element associated with the post, like kind of like a rod going through it to help with the uplift that you would get from the wind wanting to pick this structure
Yeah,
up?
let me find some notes on this. Here we go. Okay, so yeah, the concrete posts, they're 12 inches in diameter. They go 3 feet down. They're installed, let's see, this thing is put in with 5.5 inch 3/8 concrete lags. And there's metal posts hammered in that the concrete is then poured around.
So you're confident that if you were allowed to get a building permit, you could get it through the building department?
Oh, for sure, yeah. Yeah, no, this carport is not going anywhere, wind or otherwise.
Do you have a timeline in mind of when you're not going to be in your starter home anymore?
Well, I'm actually house shopping right now. I've lived there for 2 years. I've got a active search on Zillow, and I'm hoping to mount within the next year and a half, finances allowing.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Shabaka. Ms. Pollier?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So this comes as a result of an EV vehicle. When you purchased this vehicle, I guess I'm trying to figure out the timing. Was the carport already there? How did this all come about with the vehicle purchase and then the carport purchase?
Right. So I purchased the vehicle in the winter. And it was just parked on the driveway, no carport, just lived outside and everything was fine. The carport came up after the spring when it hailed multiple times and I got hail damage on the car. I said, all right, maybe it's worth putting in the carport. And that's when I did my research and found that actually shade is necessary during high heat days in the summer for EVs. And so that really set me on course for actually putting in like a nice, well-built carport rather than just like a cloth roof that I can put up and down during hailstorms. It's what pushed me in this direction. But of course, prior to knowing that it wasn't okay to actually build on the driveways I did.
Okay, so when you purchased the vehicle, you didn't know that there were any of these restrictions for where it had to be stored?
No, I did not know about the high heat
Okay.
battery damage when I bought the vehicle.
And as for the vehicle that's in the garage that you currently have, you said it's not movable, drivable, what?
It's more often than not movable or drivable. It's a project car, and like right now, it's up on jack stands. The engine is got some parts taken off of it, and there's no oil in it, so it can drive some days on its good days, but usually it's stored in the garage and would have to be in order to actually keep it safe.
I mean,
while it's-
had you considered maybe alternate storage facilities for that vehicle and then just moving your other vehicle into the garage?
Yeah, I have considered that. I mean, it comes down to just actually being able to work on the car. So that other car is one that I drive often. Sometimes I'll switch
The one
them
that's
out.
not drivable? Is
When
that,
it's not drivable,
I'm just,
then
I'm
it's
sorry,
kept
I'm
in
just
the
trying to
garage.
understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
but yeah, I have not gotten an alternate storage arrangement for
Okay.
that vehicle, no. I have considered it, and if that's the direction it needs to go, then I can, but my preference would be to keep it in the garage where it's easily accessible and I can get to it in order to drive it when it is drivable.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Pollier. Mr. Hicks?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So according to the lot layout, it doesn't appear that your lot would support an expansion of your current garage. Is that your understanding?
Definitely, yeah. To the right is very little room for even a 1.5 size garage.
And it appears that the front yard setback goes right up to the house, the building. Is that your, okay. Are you allowed to park on the street in this neighborhood?
Yes, I am. There's parking allowed on one side of the street.
What was your intent for showing us the images of other carports in the neighborhood? Was it to show that yours was better, like looks nicer and more thought out, more permanent?
Just to show that there are other carports and that there's precedent for this in the neighborhood as it stands.
Does the carport provide any, like, is there other solar panels on it, or does it provide any charging features?
No, it's just
Okay.
a roof.
Mr. Roth, if we grant a variance for this parcel and the applicant moves, does the variance stay with the land?
I believe it does.
That was my understanding as well, thank you. And those are my questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Mr. Greenberg?
I guess my questions for Mr. Roth is, well, if there was a time limit and said, or when the applicant moves, it has to come down.
I don't believe that would be enforceable.
No time limit? I thought we put time limits on other
On a
variants.
variance?
Not on a variance, I don't think.
Not, okay,
Conditional use we have.
okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay. That's all my questions.
Thank you, Mr. Greenberg. Mr. Tamarkin?
My questions have all been asked.
Okay, thank you. I just had one quick question. How much of an investment are we talking about here with the carport?
So the carport was $2,400 plus, I think it was like $80 or $100 for the concrete and additional hardware that I needed to install it. I'm not going to include the time spent on it in the value.
That was going to be my follow-up. What type of time investment do we have here?
I mean,
Approximately.
Yeah, I spent about 3 weeks off and on putting it together. I work from home, and so in the evenings I'd have time to build it.
Right, understood. Okay, those are all my questions. Okay, with that, we will.
Mr. Chair, may I ask one additional
Oh,
question, if
certainly.
you don't mind?
Yep, Ms.
Thank
Molly.
you. I just have one additional question for you. Can you what was the approximate purchase price of this vehicle?
The vehicle was $38,000.
Okay.
Bought it used. It's a 2021 model.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion to approve V-0017-2024?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the variance application in V-0017-2024 to vary section 1103 5.09E, small lot residential for property located at 541 Palace Lane.
Thank you, Ms. Polly. Do we have a second?
Second, Tamarkin.
Second by Mr. Tamarkin. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Chapaka?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I think he just sets a dangerous precedent to allow this. I understand that, you know, he has an intent to not be there for a very long time, and I would have to say that there's a really good chance that before he's forced to take that down, he'll be gone anyway. So I will not be supporting.
Thank you, Mr. Chapaka. Ms. Polly?
Yes, I agree with my colleague. I also will not be in support of this variance. I appreciate you coming here today and sharing all this information with us. However, I personally don't find any of these arguments compelling. I think that there was other alternatives that you could have done, could have considered, other resources you could have tapped into before pursuing this project. So I will also be voting no.
Thank you, Ms. Polly. Mr. Hicks?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't feel, in my opinion, that the criteria to grant a variance have been met, so I will also be voting no.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Mr. Greenberg?
Yeah, I have concerns of this becoming a precedent for the area, and who knows, we could have carports popping up all over the neighborhood. So I would agree with the city's recommendation, and I will also be opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Greenberg. Mr. Tamarkin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In unison with all my fellow committee members, I will be voting no. I think, you know, zoning codes have a reason. They have a reason for being. And, you know, we approve variances occasionally, as we just did on the prior application, where it makes some sense. But as Mr. Greenberg just said, to set a precedent to allow a structure in the front yard 7 feet 9 inches, I wasn't sure if that was from the curb or from the sidewalk, but it's irrelevant, I think is a precedent that will come back to haunt us many, many, many times. And as a commission, even though we do grant variances, it's very important for us to have consistency. And by approval of, if we would approve this, I think we will open ourselves up for a very difficult time in the future to be consistent with carports. Then the next person's going on a deck in the front, and the next person's going to build a garage coming to the front, and then you're going to have a hot tub in the front, and you know, it could never end. So with that, I will also be voting no.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tamarkin. And I'm also going to be voting no. I think again, I'm in agreement with my colleagues that the threshold to grant the variance just has not been met in this situation. I actually live close to you. I'm subdivision north of you, and I go down Royal Manor all the time. So I just again just think that this would be very out of character for the area. Granted, with the example you gave tonight, you know, I get that, and that's, you know, 2 wrongs definitely don't make a right. So again, I will not be in support of the variance. So with that, clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you. Ms. Polly?
No.
Mr. Tamarkin?
No.
Mr. Greenberg?
No?
Mr. Hicks?
No.
All right. And,
Mr.
I'm sorry?
Chapaka.
Yes, he's next. Mr. Chapaka?
No.
And Chairman Mango?
No.
Thank you.
Motion fails. You do have the option to request a appeal of this. If you want to go down that route, see the clerk afterwards. We're closed with this. We can maybe perhaps talk afterwards. Okay, the next item on our agenda is Sheets Tech Center. We have 4 different items on this, and I'll read each one of these into the record. So we have a conditional use application, CU-0003-2024, to consider a conditional use application for property located at 530 Tech Center Drive, parcel ID 025-013767, current zoning SCPD, Sheets Tech Center, DW route applicant. And then we have a variance application, case V-0018-2024, to consider a variance application to vary section 1167.18C1, screening requirements for property located at 530 Tech Center Drive, parcel ID 025-013767, current zoning SCPD, Sheets Tech Center, DW route applicant. We have a final development plan, FDP-006-2024, to consider a final development plan application for property located at 530 Tech Center Drive, parcel ID 025-013767, current zoning SCPD, Sheets Tech Center Drive, DW route applicant. And then finally, a final development plan application, which is DR-0010-2024, to consider a final development plan application for property located at 530 Tech Center Drive, parcel ID 025-013767, current zoning SCPD, Sheets Tech Center, DW route applicant. Turn it over to the application or administration, Ms. Kapka, for a presentation.
The final applications of the night are for a Sheets gas station at 1070 Tech Center Drive. Here is a zoning map of the area. The approximate location of the site is underneath the red star. It's just to the east of Hamilton Road and just south of I-270. These applications were filed under the previous zoning code, and the zoning district at that time was Select Commercial Plan District. This project includes final development plan, design review, conditional use, and variance applications for a Sheets gas station and quick service restaurant. As mentioned, the site was zoned SCPD at the time of submittal, and gasoline service stations are a conditional use within this zoning district. The site is now zoned general commercial under the new zoning code, and gas stations are also a conditional use in that district as well. The 2.99 acre site is currently undeveloped and located on the north side of Tech Center Drive. The parcel is not yet created, but it will be through a separate final plat application that is currently under staff review. The proposal includes a 6,100 square foot restaurant and retail building with an attached drive-through. The exterior of the building is brick veneer with a stone base and red and brown roofs. The roof of the fuel pumps will match the existing building. There are 6 total fuel pumps that service 12 vehicles at a time. All of the parking on the site is located to the front and side of the building, and the fuel pumps are also in the front in the parking lot. The zoning code requires 34 parking spaces for this site, and 49 are proposed. Here is a site plan that was submitted by the applicant. So here you can see Tech Center Drive to the south and a public loop road around the entire exterior of the site. That loop road will be created through the final plat application as well. So here you can see the main building in red, and the fuel pumps and parking to the north, and the drive-through aisle just to the south in green. The dumpster is also highlighted in yellow on the site plan, since there is a variance required for the dumpster location. Here's some more information about the landscaping proposed at the site. Due to the size of the parking lot, approximately 3,600 square feet of landscaping is required, and 3,800 square feet is provided. There is also a requirement to plant 37 trees along with those parking lot landscaping requirements, and that requirement is met. Chapter 914 requires some additional caliper inches of trees on top of the 37, and it requires 84 caliper inches in this case, and 85 are provided. Since there is a right-of-way on each side of this property, there must be a 3-foot high screen for the parking lot on every side, and this requirement is met as well. Here are elevations of the exterior of the building that shows the design. The north elevation at the top is what's considered the front of the building, and you can see from the fuel pump elevation that the materials of that match the primary structure. And all of these materials and designs are consistent with other Sheets locations. Here's the conditional use criteria that must be met in order for the application to be approved. The proposed use is a conditional use in the district. The development is in accord with appropriate plans for the area. The development will not have undesirable effects on the area, and the development will be in keeping with the existing land use character. Staff recommends approval of the conditional use as submitted, as the conditional use criteria has been met. The use is appropriate for the area due to its close proximity to both Hamilton Road and I-270. The area is primarily commercial and medical with one multifamily site, which is currently under development. The land use plan designates this area as mixed use, which recommends a complementary blend of uses, and staff believes that a gas station and quick service restaurant complement the existing and proposed surrounding uses. There is one variance required with this application, and it is for the requirement that all dumpsters must be located to the rear of the main structure. As mentioned, the lot has frontage on a street along every property line, so each yard is considered a front yard, and there is no rear yard to place the dumpster in. So this variance would be required no matter what. Here is the design review criteria. The top section is the standard criteria for every design review application. And then since the site is zoned commercial, it also falls within Design Review District 3, which contains some additional recommendations. The applicable recommendations are entrances and exits shall be well decorated and landscaped. Earth mounding and trees are recommended to reduce noise. A generous use of vegetation is encouraged. And the preferred building materials are brick, stone, cement, decorative aluminum, and wood. Here is the standard final development plan criteria. And staff recommends approval of the design review, final development plan, and variance applications as submitted, as staff believes that all criteria has been met. Additionally, the recommendations for Design Review District 3 have also been met since the landscape plan exceeds or meets all landscaping requirements, and the entire site is screened by a 3-foot-high landscaping. Finally, only one variance is requested, and this variance would be necessary regardless of the use or site layout. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kapka. We'll now open public comment. Would the applicant like to comment? Again, if you could state your name, address, and relationship to the project, that'd be great. And also note, because there's several items here, we'll allot additional time to address all the items.
Thank you, Chair.
So please.
Chris Ingram, 52 East Gay Street, Columbus. I'm an attorney with the Voorhees Law Firm here on behalf of the applicant, Skilkin Gold Real Estate Development. I'm joined by my co-counsels, Joe Miller, Mike Shannon, along with Emily Wheeler, the project manager with Skilkin Gold Real Estate Development, Andrew Gardner, a professional engineer with V3 Companies, and Mike Cassell from Sheets. And members of the committee, or commission, this is now the third site in the city of Gahanna that this applicant has sought to use for a quick service restaurant and fuel center. Some of you may recall that we were before this commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals last year for the site on Morris Road. And despite approval of the conditional use, we were told to find an alternative site. So we came back before you earlier this year, just a few months ago, for the redevelopment of the site on Granville Street. And we're instructed again to find an alternative site. We then filed an appeal of this commission's decision. However, but in good faith, we've now withdrawn that appeal and focused our efforts on this site. So we're here before you tonight on what we believe to be an ideal site for a Sheets quick service restaurant and fuel center. Now that site is located at 530 Tech Center Drive. And you know, if you drive around there today, you can see the development there for the Crescent at Central Park is in full swing and coming along quite nicely. And that's why we're here before you tonight, so that this Sheets location can proceed apace. So before you are 4 applications that, as staff recommended, satisfies all the criteria in your code, except with the one exception that, you know, this may be the first time ever you've had 2 applications with no rear yard in the same night. Yeah, so what are the chances? First, with respect to the conditional use application, as the staff report correctly concludes, the conditional use criteria are easily satisfied for this proposed use of this site. As Ms. Kapka also noted, this site's close proximity to Interstate 270 and Hamilton Road, along with the surrounding planned mix of primarily commercial and medical uses, make it an ideal location for a quick-service restaurant and fuel center. Likewise, only one variance being requested, and that is prompted by the reality that all 4 sides of this property will be surrounded by public roads. So there's no real rear yard to place the refuse containers. Nevertheless, you can see from the site plans before you, we have enclosed the refuse containers with a brick wall as well as natural landscaping and vegetation to fully buffer the receptacles. Now, with respect to the final development plan that's before you, this satisfies the development standards and is entirely consistent with the plans for the area. The plan exceeds the parking requirements. 49 spaces are provided while only 34 are required. With respect to the landscaping, just the quantity of landscaping, 3,600 square feet are required, whereas 3,800 are being provided. And with respect to the screening requirements, you can see here on what's being displayed, the entire parking lot area, the entire use is screened with 3 feet of shrubs and other natural features. And likewise, with the timing of this development, as well as the larger development for this site, the development will be entirely consistent with the mix of uses that are planned for this area. And as staff pointed out, the land use plan does call for a mix of uses, which this complements it quite nicely. So consequently, as the staff report correctly concludes, each of the elements requisite for the final development plan are satisfied, which leads me finally to the design review application. Here again, our planning team was very intentional in planning and designing this project to satisfy the Design Review District 3 requirements. Now, technically, we're in Design Review District 5, but because this particular use is commercial, it's subject to Design Review District 3 requirements. We meet those. The design is very consistent, and I think now familiar with you all. And so I want to be very short and straightforward tonight. It's been a long road to get to this point. The design team has worked very hard to ensure that the plans before you satisfy the applicable requirements. The city staff and its administration are supportive of this site for this project, and we ask that this commission likewise approve all 4 applications before you tonight. We thank you for your time and consideration.
Great, thank you. Okay, anyone from the public would like to comment, please step forward. I do have one speaker slip, Patricia Kovacs. Again, if you could come, state your name, address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Yeah, my name's Patricia Kovacs. I live at 527 Haversham Drive in Gahanna. And these guys are probably saying, oh, here comes that bicyclist again. She's going to complain. And I came to thank Sheets for picking this spot. I think it's a good location. I think it'll work really well. I just can't do a 100% rubber stamp because, could you bring up the landscaping plan? Right there, we have bike lanes on Tech Center that go on both sides of the street, but right by the Sheets is where the bike lane transitions to a side path. And because it's downhill, I am a little concerned about with the traffic coming in and out those 2 driveways and, the bikes flying onto that side path. So I was originally going to say, could we move that transition either further west or east to make it into a side path, not right in front of the Sheets? Now, I don't think that's a Sheets issue. I think it's a City of Gahanna issue. So we could talk about that later. I just want to say I do approve this location. So But there's one other thing I should add, in case Sheets doesn't know. We're going to be adding another side path on Hamilton Road that's going to cross 270 and then come to Tech Center Drive and Pasero Park. So, you know, the design of that isn't complete yet, as far as I know. So we should make sure everything all fits together. And actually, I wish that the side path could be on the south side of Tech Center Drive, because that's the park property, and there won't be driveways. That'll be a conflict for bicyclists that are afraid to ride on the road, would rather be on a side path. So that's all I have to say. But yeah, I do like it, and thank you, Sheets, for choosing this, and sorry we made it so difficult for you.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, does the applicant have a rebuttal? Or would you like to rebuttal? No. Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll now close public comment and open up for questions from the commission. Starting on my left, Mr. Spaka.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Site engineer question? Site layout, driveways and such? The extra exit or curb cut on Tech Center, it doesn't really seem to be necessary. If I'm going to go to the east there and go out to the drive that goes around the main, pretty much around the whole property, what's the reasoning for that curb cut?
Andrew Gardner, 6628 Burbank Place, Westerville, Ohio, civil engineer. You're referring to the curb cut on the left on that picture up there?
It faces south?
The two facing south?
Yeah, the two facing south.
The two curb cuts facing south on Tech Center, that's the public street loop road that is planned as part of the overall development for the whole master plan. Those roads are going in as part of a Casto larger development. We really don't have a whole lot of influence or say on that. That's part of the plat that's going to be before you that's currently under staff review.
The one, the other one on the south.
I guess I'm confused which ones you're referring to. Are you referring to actual curb cuts for the sheets or the two drives on Tech Center?
On the south side there, it looks like there's an additional curb cut that accesses Tech Drive. Is that not?
We don't have any
Follow
curb.
the blue line, the awning, if you just go to the right, which is to the
Yes.
south, just immediate there, that looks like a curb cut. That is not a curb cut.
We have curb cuts on the north-south road there, which is just north of that blue awning. We have a curb cut to the west on the loop road and one to the north on the loop road. Those are our three access points to the site.
And north is up in this image, I think.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we do not have any direct access to Tech Center Drive. Our access is off of those side streets that will be public roads.
There you go. Thank you for the explanation.
You're welcome.
I withdraw that request. I have another question for Mike. It was Mike DeSales, the sheets.
Mike Casal, I'm with Sheets, 630 Morrison Road, Gahanna.
So this is the third one that we've been presented with. Why only 6,300 square feet on this beautiful site?
We don't have a bigger building than that.
Is this the largest building that Sheets
We have
has?
one building that's just a shade bigger than this, but we only use it on truck diesel sites because of the additional bathrooms. The sales floor, the restaurant, the seating are all otherwise identical.
So your research determined the size of this particular,
We only build three. So this one, the one with the bigger bathrooms, and then the smaller one we presented at Lincoln Circle. That's the only three buildings that we'll build.
well, I was giving you an opportunity to make it 12,000, but I guess you're stuck at
We
63.
probably couldn't meet your parking code then.
Very good. Thanks, Mike. No more questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Spaka. Ms. Pollier?
My question is probably for Mike as well. How did you come to choose this third location?
Same reason as all the others, traffic, availability, and zoning. I mean, that's what we're after. And a landlord that was willing to work with us.
Okay. That's, okay, thank you. I don't have anything further.
Thank you. Mr. Hicks?
No questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Mr. Greenberg?
Yes, the green behind the building there, is that well, I'm looking at the.
Yeah,
I guess
the green highlight is what staff put on to
Right.
define the drive-through.
Okay, so the, below the drive-through is that a brick wall or just a separation?
No, you're talking about right next to where the cars are? That's just paint on the pavement to separate traffic.
Okay, so my concern is a big trash truck can get in to get to the dumpster without any problems?
Oh, yeah.
That's been measured out.
There's more than enough room for that. We're very, very careful about truck routing on all of our sites.
Okay, and then, so there's 3 exits, basically, right?
Yes,
So there's the one, I guess is it the west, one to the north, and one to the east?
yes.
Okay, so you expect that the traffic will just go whichever way it
Well,
expected?
the driveway, page right,
Right,
is restricted. It's 3-directional, however, it is the more major road. The other 2 driveways are full cuts. We do require those to get our trucks in and out of. So, yeah, we're expecting customers to use all 3, but we really need the bigger ones to get fuel delivery and store delivery trucks in and out.
and
We can't use the one because the restricted access has the island in the middle of it.
right, okay. And then you have 3 building sizes typically. What about the pumps? Do you have more pumps at any other of the locations, or is that a max?
Yeah, it all depends on site and what we're expecting to sell in fuel, yes.
Okay,
I mean, we can, 6 is very typical for us, but sometimes, depending on the width of the lot, it would be 6 in a double stack, so it'd be 3 rows, 2 deep, or this layout where they're all in a single dive-in layout.
right.
We do have 8s. We have 7s. I mean, it all depends on the site and what we expect to sell in fuel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all my questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Greenberg. Mr. Tamarkin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A number of questions here, I guess. To expand on that, is that expandable? If you do a lot of business, can you go to 7 or 8 here?
It would be very unlikely that we would spend the money to do that.
Okay,
I won't tell you we can't do it. I would tell you we probably will not.
okay. The dumpster.
Yeah.
Mr. Ingram said it's going to be surrounded brick wall, 3 sides. Will there be a gate in front, or will the front be open?
Go to any one of our stores, you'll see the same thing. It's fully masonry, and it has very heavy faux wood, synthetic wood doors on it.
That swing open when the truck comes or when your staff needs to use it. You're filing for 1 variance for that dumpster, which, as Mr. Ingram said, first time earlier today, we saw a house with a front yard in the backyard. This could be the first time we've ever seen 4 front yards. Do you anticipate coming back for a signage variance? Typically on fast food restaurants
I don't
with,
know that we've looked at it that close, but I doubt it.
okay, I'm not sure, I doubt it. Usually with drive-throughs, there's signs more than codes.
Yeah.
And also, will there be a monument sign with
will
gas
be.
prices?
Yes.
Okay. And where will that be located on this site map?
It's shown in that drawing near the main drive and tech center. It's right down by Tech Center Drive.
Page right, so the bottom right corner of the
Yep.
picture, will be a monument there that'll have your pricing. Okay. And as you said, the streets really aren't your doing. The streets are part of the plat that we will see at a later.
Yeah, the developer is building all of those as part of his overall project. We're leasing a parcel from him.
And the streets were designed to fit your parcel right in the middle there. That is the extent of my questions. I'll have some comments.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tamarkin. I have just a few quick questions, should be pretty minor. So one of my biggest concerns was about the roads, but I think that's been addressed. That'll be part of the bigger overall development. So I think I understand that. the existing bike path there on the south, that goes along Tech Center Drive, that's not going to be impacted in any way of this, this development?
I mean, it's being built as part of the tech center improvements and as part of the other developments, the bike path coming up the main new drive. That's not us constructing any of that.
Okay. And I noticed on the development plan, you do plan to install bike racks?
We do.
Okay.
We will.
Okay, good. Getting some, quick question about aesthetics. The coloration of the brick, it's gonna be similar to the other buildings which are there in this development, so it's not gonna stick out or anything?
They were the materials that were submitted. I don't know what the other neighbors are doing.
Okay, but you don't think it's gonna be, again, something that just really kind of sticks out?
Almost any of our prototype stores, that's what you're gonna see. It's the standard modeled red brick with the cultured stone base.
Okay. And in your opinion, do you think this is going to be, the size and scale of this operation is going to be similar to what is there on Stelter on the other side of the airport?
Building will be almost identical. Yeah, it's the same general facility. Yes.
Okay, and one final question going back to the development plan. Is there any floodplain on this particular parcel?
I'm going to defer to our engineer.
Okay, because I saw different zones on this and just wanted to get a clarification
Yes,
there.
initially, I think there was some floodplain on this, but again, that's all being remediated as part of the larger Casto development. They're going through the proper Lomar, Clomar, amendments and things to correct that floodplain and get it out of it. By the time our development goes in, that should all be resolved.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hicks?
Thank you. I did come up with a question.
Sure.
There was a discussion about how customers will use all three access points, so the west, north, and east. Are any of those going to be restricted in any way, right in, right out, or is it full left turn, right turn?
If you see the one to the east, I believe we are showing a right in, right out on that one right there.
Okay.
Yes. I apologize, it is a three-way. So it's right in, right out, probably left in. Yeah, so that one is restricted to right in, right out, and then if you're coming north on that road, you can make a left in at that location.
All right. So you said that was the east entrance?
Yes, the
Okay.
one to the right on the screen there.
Very good. Unlike Mr. Shipak, I can read north and south. Kidding. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Chair, may I ask an additional question?
Mr. Greenberg.
Oh.
Yep.
Sorry.
Okay.
Are there going to be, just back to the signs again, are there going to be the sandwich board signs, electronic? Is it electronic when you go through the drive-through? And do they need approval if that's the case?
So Emily Wheeler, 4270 Morse Road, Columbus, Ohio. So we have started to look at signage. We haven't completed our full sign package just yet. So we understand that there's a new zoning code that we would need to adhere to. So we've started to take a look at that. And so far, the markup we've done is compliant with the zoning code. We understand that any variances we'd of course come back before this board. But as far as the specifics of the signage, we do have typically changeable copy on any monument sign for the pricers. As far as the drive-through, I don't believe we have any. Maybe Mike can.
Our drive-through menu board is just like in our stores. It's all on a touch pad. So the menu board is a static board. It doesn't have changeable anything on it. So the drive-through, when you pull up to the order point, a touch screen comes up, and that's how you cycle through what you want to order.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Greenberg. Ms. Polly?
Yes, thank you. My question is for Chris, please. I just want to ask about the real estate, if I may. Do you have a signed LOI already for this property?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay, I just want to know if it's conditioned upon our approval today.
And I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. You haven't started that process?
We started all, I don't know what the conditions are. I'd hate to tell you something and not be
Could you, yeah, please.
I know that all of our agreements with the landlord are in place, but I don't want to identify it because I don't have it in front of me. I don't know what to tell you as far as,
So you don't know if you have a signed lease?
we have a agreement to lease.
An LOI?
Getting
Okay.
through
That was,
all of our approvals.
okay. And it's conditioned upon our approval today, I would assume?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yours and engineering and all kind of other approvals.
Sure. Okay. Are you able to share any of the terms?
I don't know those.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
And Mr. Chair, if I could, Mr. Tamarkin, there are elevations, by the way, of that trash enclosure that show or indicate the fencing and wall surround.
Okay, good, thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? All right. Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve CU-0003-2024?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve CU-0003-2024 conditional use for sheets on Tech Center Drive.
We have a motion by Mr. Tamarkin. Do we have a second?
Second, Greenberg.
We have a second by Mr. Greenberg. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Shapaka?
No, the only comment I would have is I'm in support of the conditional use. I think it's warranted in this case.
Thank you. Ms. Pelley?
I would probably agree with that as well. I never had an issue with the design review to start with. I think it is more applicable in this location. I think this is a much better location that meets with everyone's approval. I'm sure not everyone, but a lot more people in our community are in approval of this location. And I just think, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Mr. Hicks?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll make some general comments on all four applications. So to Mr. Ingram and the team, thank you. Welcome back. And I know the past two applications were a little rough, you might say contentious, from the public response. This one, totally different, 180 degrees. So again, I want to say thank you for giving Gahanna a chance and coming up with a location that's mutually beneficial. Again, the withdrawal of the appeal, you mentioned that was in good faith. Again, I think it was a great show of good faith. Compared to the previous applications, this location is much more ideal. The variance, very minor, and it has to do with those 4 front yards, which we'll probably never see again. The development plan, again, very familiar with all the other sheets, locations I've been to. And again, design review, it looks very similar. So I'll be in support of all 4 applications tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Mr. Greenberg?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also will be in support of all 4 applications, and I'd like to thank Sheets for sticking with Gahanna and coming back with a good location.
Thank you, Mr. Greenberg. Mr. Tamarkin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and second or third what my colleagues have all said. I think, our relationship with Sheets has been a little contentious with the first couple sites. This site is appropriate. I will be in support of all 4, and I want to thank Mr. Ingram for Voorhees, the Skilkin Gold people, the Sheets people, and also Mr. Canini, who did this deal on behalf of the landlord, for following it through. I think it happened fairly quickly, and you can tell by the lack of comment I mentioned before the meeting started. There's been very little on social media, unlike the first 2 sites. The public supports it, the city supports it, and this commission, we try to be cooperative. We try to work things out. There's just times, including the last the variance we saw in the carport, where sometimes it's just not right. So this one is just right, and I will be in support of all 4 applications.
Thank you, Mr. Tamarkin. And I'm also going to be in support of all 4 applications. again, thank you, Sheets, for working through a long and, as we said, contentious road. But I think that this is going to be a really good site for Sheets. And just, knowing, the level of traffic there on Hamilton, and as Tech Center gets developed, I think it's going to be a really good location for your business. So I really don't have anything more to add other than, again, thank you for working through this long process. So again, I'm going to be in support of all four applications. Okay, so with that, clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Tamarkin?
Yes.
Mr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Pollier?
Yes.
Mr. Chapaka?
Yes.
Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
And Chairman Mako?
Yes. Motion passes. Okay, moving on to the variance application. Do we have a motion to approve V-0018-2024?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I make a motion for approval of V-0018-2024 variance for Sheets on Tech Center Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Tamarkin. Do we have a second?
Second, Greenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Greenberg. Any additional discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I missed the memo where we were going to do all four of them at once. I was going individually with my comments. So I'll wrap it up with, on this one here. So the variance application, dumpsters and enclosures are always kind of an odd thing. Sometimes we make the enclosure bigger than what the eyesore of the dumpster is, but the product that Sheets has is very pleasing to the eye, very complimentary to the building, and I will be in support. And to expand on that, the other design review, again, the product that you guys produce is a very good civic product. We're very, very happy to have it here.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Polly?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any additional comments.
Mr. Hicks?
No further comments.
Mr. Greenberg?
No further comments.
Mr. Tamarkin? And I have no further comments. So with that, clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Tamarkin?
Yes.
Mr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Chairman Mako?
Yes.
Ms. Pollier?
Yes.
And Mr. Chapaka?
Yes.
Motion passes. Moving on, the final development plan. Do we have a motion to approve FDP-0006-2024?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I make a motion for approval of FDP-0006-2024 final development plan for Sheets on Tech Center Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Tamarkin. Do I have a second?
Second, Greenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Greenberg. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Tamarkin?
Yes.
Mr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Chairman Mako?
Yes.
Ms. Pollier?
Yes.
Mr. Chapaka?
Yes.
Motion passes. And then finally, on our design review, do we have a motion to approve DR-0010-2024?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I make a motion for approval of DR-0010-2024 design review for Sheets on Tech Center Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Tamarkin. Do we have a second?
Second, Greenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Greenberg. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Tamarkin?
Yes.
Mr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Chairman Mako?
Yes.
Ms. Pollier?
Yes.
Mr. Chapaka?
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, that'll do it for our items tonight. Next on the agenda, unfinished business. Don't believe we have any new business. Official reports, Mr. Assistant City Attorney.
Nothing to report at this time.
I do not see the Director of Planning. Ms. Kapka, do you have anything?
One quick update from us. We're currently drafting some revisions to the zoning code, and we expect those to be before you within the next couple of months.
Thank you. Anything, Council Liaison? Don't see Mr. Blackford. Madam Mayor? I have nothing for tonight, thank you. Okay, thank you. And I also have nothing. Any correspondence or actions?
No, sir.
All right. Members' comments, Mr. Chapaka?
Nope.
Ms. Pelletier?
No, thank you.
Mr. Hicks?
No comments.
Mr. Greenberg?
No comments.
Mr. Tamarkin?
No comments.
And I have nothing. So with that, motion to adjourn?
Moved?